To the man who spends his nights buried in court briefs, and another man's wife. I froze mid-bite, fork suspended halfway to my mouth. Tuesday night meatloaf. That's when Delia decided to ruin 18 years of marriage with one sentence. I've been thinking about us. You, me, and Grant, together, she said, slicing her meat with the focus of a surgeon. Before we get deeper into this story, take a second to hit that like button if you're already feeling the tension. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next twist in this unraveling tale. And if this already has your heart racing, share it with someone who loves stories that hit hard. My wife. My Delia. Her eyes didn't waver. Actually, she added casually, I invited him over tonight to talk about it. And then, as if on cue, the doorbell rang. Perfect. I'm Evan Lorne. 43. Ex-amateur boxer turned insurance adjuster. I've seen enough wreckage to recognize when a bomb is about to go off. And the look on Delia's face? That smug, satisfied curl of her lips? Told me I was sitting in the damn blast zone. That must be him now, she said sweetly, dabbing her mouth with a linen napkin I'd ironed that morning. Apparently I iron napkins now. Our daughter, Zoe, didn't even glance up from her phone. 17 and already a master at pretending her family wasn't unraveling around her. Smart kid. I stared at Delia. You invited him here? Her blade never paused on the meatloaf. Of course. We're all adults here, Evan. You invited him here? I repeated, slower this time. The rage was rising behind my ribs, hot and tight, like steam building in a sealed valve. To our home. Our table. To talk about your fantasy? Delia's emerald eyes glittered, but there was no affection in them. There hadn't been for a long time. Don't be dramatic, she said. This isn't the 1950s. People explore things now. Romantic expression, openness. Mom, gross, Zoe muttered without lifting her head. Can I go eat at Tessa's? Finish your dinner, sweetheart, Delia replied with a saccharine smile. Then back to me, the smile turning razor sharp. Unless you'd rather answer the door? The bell rang again, longer this time. Insistent. I stood slowly, the chair legs scraping harshly across the hardwood floor I'd sanded and stained by hand 3 summers ago. Back when I thought hard work meant something. Back when I believed Delia still cared. If he walks through that door, I said, voice low, tight, I'm not playing polite. Delia gave a breathy laugh. Oh, Evan. You're always so possessive. I didn't answer. Just walked toward the door, fists clenched so tight my knuckles cracked. Through the frosted glass I saw his silhouette. Tall. Confident. Grant fucking Calloway. I opened the door without ceremony. Grant Calloway stood there with the smug ease of a man who thought he belonged. Tall, lean, perfectly groomed. He wore a tailored navy suit like he was born in it and held a bottle of wine. Something expensive, no doubt, like it was his ticket to respectability. Evan, he said with a practiced smile, the kind that probably won over juries and seduced interns. Delia said I should just come on in. Hope this isn't awkward. Oh, it's awkward, I replied flatly. Come with me. He blinked, clearly not expecting that response. Maybe we should talk first? I didn't give him the chance. I grabbed him by his silk tie and yanked him through the side door into the garage. Slammed it shut behind us. The house muffled instantly, replaced by the cold hum of fluorescent lights and the faint scent of motor oil. My heavy bag hung silently in the corner, just beside the workbench where I'd once built Zoe's first bike. Let's get one thing straight, I said, backing him into the workbench hard enough to rattle the socket wrenches. I don't care how many meetings you've had with my wife. But you sure as hell aren't stepping foot in my house to discuss it over pot roast. Grant swallowed hard, his back pressing into the workbench. His smile had vanished, replaced by a sheen of sweat on his brow. I reached beside him and picked up a crowbar, not to use it, just to let him see it. Feel the weight of something real in the air between us. I'm not some sad, clueless husband, I said, tapping the crowbar gently against my open palm. You think you can just stroll into my home, charm your way past my daughter, and discuss your sick fantasies with my wife over wine and polite conversation? Evan, I think, he began. No, I cut him off. You don't think. If you did, you'd already be walking back to that polished car of yours. Here's what's going to happen, Calloway. You're going to take your overpriced wine and your shiny shoes and get the hell off my property. His face had gone pale, mouth slightly open. And if I ever see you here again, you'll be leaving in a wheelchair. Clear? The door to the house creaked open. Delia stood there in the frame, arms crossed, wearing that expression she always wore when I embarrassed her in front of her friends, except this time her shame was earned. Evan, she said. What the hell are you doing? Taking out the trash. Grant straightened his tie, trying to regain the image of a man in control. But his eyes betrayed him, wide, rattled, desperate to leave without losing too much dignity. Maybe we should talk another time, Delia, he mumbled, backing toward the main garage door. There won't be another time, I said, stepping between him and my tools. Delia laughed, cold and sharp, a sound that had once been musical but now cut like broken glass. You're being ridiculous, Evan. He's a colleague. A friend. Friends don't usually get invited to family dinner to discuss bedroom strategies. Grant's hand hovered near the garage door opener. I didn't stop him. He hit the button, and the heavy door rumbled upward. Across the street, our neighbor Margie was grabbing her mail. She waved until she saw the tension, the stance, the sweat. Then she looked away and hurried inside. This isn't over, Delia muttered as Grant bolted to his sleek BMW. His tires squealed slightly as he took off. Amateur. In boxing, I learned early, your opponent's real move doesn't come with the first punch. It's what follows that determines the fight. You're pathetic, Delia hissed behind me. I turned slowly. Maybe next time I'll invite more friends. I turned to face her fully. Delia stood in the doorway like she was royalty, surveying the ruins of a kingdom she'd decided to burn. Her hair was immaculate, not a curl out of place. Her lipstick still perfect, untouched by dinner or shame. She'd always been beautiful, dangerously so. But in that moment, all I saw was cruelty wrapped in gloss. You want a war? I asked, voice low. You've got one. She smirked and walked back inside without another word, leaving me standing there in the cold garage with the crowbar, my tools, and the weight of 18 years unraveling by the second. I stayed out there for hours, too wired to sleep, too broken to cry. My hands still trembled, but not from fear, just the shock of finally seeing things clearly. My phone buzzed on the workbench. A message from Margie across the street. Everything okay over there? I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Just getting started. By morning, Delia acted like nothing had happened. She sipped her coffee at the kitchen island from the mug I'd bought her last Christmas. World's greatest wife. The irony landed harder than any punch I'd ever taken in the ring. I'm thinking about redecorating the bedroom, Delia said, scrolling on her phone like she hadn't detonated our marriage 12 hours earlier. Her tone was casual, detached. Something more modern. Less masculine. I was at the stove, making eggs for Zoe, trying to preserve some shard of routine in a house that no longer felt like home. Masculine? I asked, not turning around. You know, she said, finally meeting my eyes. The furniture. It's so rustic. You mean the furniture I built with my own hands? It's just stuck. We need a fresh start. Zoe stumbled into the kitchen with her earbuds in and her backpack hanging off one shoulder. She grabbed a slice of toast and headed for the door. Breakfast? I called after her. I'll eat at school, she mumbled. Zoe, sit down and eat with your family, Delia said sharply. Our daughter stopped. Pulled one earbud out. Looked between us. Even at 17, she knew something had shattered. Are you guys getting divorced? She asked. The question dropped like smoke from a house fire, slow, thick, and impossible to ignore. Delia's coffee cup paused midair. I kept scrambling the eggs like I hadn't heard her. But the silence that followed said everything. Don't be dramatic, Delia said at last, recovering her poise. Your father and I are simply exploring new dynamics in our relationship. Gross, Zoe muttered. Just say you're having a midlife crisis like a normal person. I nearly smiled. Sarcasm, she got that from me? The sharp edge in her voice? That was Delia's legacy. After Zoe left for school, Delia disappeared into her home office, claiming she had court prep. I knew better. She was texting Grant, planning their next move, laying groundwork. I'd seen the signs for months. New lingerie buried beneath old pajamas. Late nights at the office with no trail of briefs to prove it. Whispers that stopped when I walked in the room. I should have confronted her sooner. Should have demanded answers. But I didn't. I let it slide, let the lies pile up like kindling around our lives, too afraid to strike the match. Last night she struck it for me. I grabbed my keys and drove across town to the one place I knew could ground me. Mick's gym. I hadn't been there in years, not since Delia convinced me trading fists was beneath a man with potential. Funny how the ring still called to me. Mick's gym hadn't changed a bit. Still smelled like old sweat, leather, and desperation. The kind of place where men went to bleed quietly and rebuild whatever life had broken. The bell above the door chimed as I stepped inside. The heavy bags swung slowly in the corner, and Mick himself, 70-something and still solid as oak, was working the bag with quiet, punishing precision. He looked up when he heard me. Paused. A slow smile spread across his weathered face. "Well, I'll be damned," he said, grabbing a towel from the ropes. "Evan Lorne. Thought you'd traded fists for spreadsheets. Never too fancy for you, Mick." He studied my face the way only a man who's seen 1,000 broken fighters can. Saw the bruises that hadn't surfaced yet. The ones inside. "Trouble at home?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. Just nodded once. So I told him. About Delia. About the dinner. About Grant Calloway and the fantasy that wasn't just fantasy anymore. Mick didn't flinch. He listened the way real men do, quietly, completely. "Women like that," he finally said, "don't respect men who play defense. You've been backing up for years. Time to swing." I threatened him with a crowbar. Mick grinned. That was foreplay. Real fights start up here. He tapped his temple. "Use your head," Mick said, tossing me a pair of gloves. "You're smarter than both of them put together. So stop acting like you've already lost." I didn't argue. Instead, I wrapped my hands and stepped up to the heavy bag. The leather was cracked, familiar. I could still feel the rhythm buried in my bones. Came back in pulses, jab, cross, hook. A dance of rage and control. Each punch was Delia's smirk. Each combo was Grant's polished grin. I didn't stop until my shoulders ached and my knuckles were raw. Sweat ran down my back, purging something ugly. By the time I peeled the gloves off, I could breathe again. When I got home, Delia was in the bedroom, laying out a sleek black dress across the bed, new, expensive, low-cut. She stood at the mirror, putting on lipstick like it was war paint. "I'll be late tonight," she said, not even looking at me. "Office party?" I asked, already knowing. She paused just long enough for it to mean something. "Probably. Grant will be there. He works at the firm, Evan. Don't make this a thing." I smiled tightly. Wouldn't dream of it. But after she left, I did something I'd never done before. I started searching. I wasn't proud of it. Rifling through Delia's drawers, her closet, her bags. But pride doesn't survive betrayal. Sometimes it's swallowed by desperation. In the nightstand, beneath a stack of legal briefs, I found it, a hotel receipt from the Briarwood downtown. Champagne. Strawberries. Room for 2. The date? Last Tuesday. She told me she was prepping depositions. My hands trembled as I took a photo of it. Evidence. Not just of an affair, but of the contempt she had for the life we'd built. For me. I moved to her laptop bag. She'd left it open. Her email was still logged in. The first message stared at me like a slap across the face. "Can't wait to feel you again. I dreamt about you all night." Below that, another, "Evan has no idea. He's too busy fixing the porch or some crap." Each word stripped something from me. Not the sex. That I could almost understand. It was the mockery. The way they laughed at me behind my back. Like I was a sad joke in my own house. I printed everything, emails, receipts, texts. Every lie, every whisper. The file was thick. I locked it in my toolbox in the garage, right beside the wrenches I'd used to build her world. She came home after 2 a.m. I heard the garage door roll shut. Heard her heels on the tile, the click of her keys on the counter, the creak of our bedroom door. She thought I was asleep. She slid under the covers, reeking of red wine and cologne that didn't belong to me. Her breathing was steady, rehearsed. "How was the party?" I asked into the dark. She stiffened. Just for a second. "Fine," she said. "Boring, actually." "Was Grant there?" "I don't remember," she replied too quickly. "I was mostly networking." I turned toward her. "Delia, do you love me?" The question floated in the silence like a balloon filled with poison. She didn't answer at first. "That's complicated," she said eventually. "No, it's not." Another long pause. Then, "I love our family. I love the life we've built." "That's not what I asked." She turned away. "I'm tired, Evan. Can we talk about this tomorrow?" But I already had my answer. And tomorrow? Tomorrow I was going to stop pretending. Her work gala was Friday. Some black-tie charity event downtown. She told me weeks ago I wasn't invited. "It's more of a networking thing," she'd said. But Mick had a different idea. "You're going," he told me. "She doesn't want me there," I told Mick between rounds on the mitts. He shrugged. "Since when do you need permission to attend your own wife's event?" He had a point. Back in the early days, I was her +1 at every firm dinner, charity gala, and awards night. Somewhere along the line, I became the embarrassment she didn't want seen in public. A reminder of the version of herself she was trying to escape. I went home, showered, and put on the navy suit she'd picked out for me years ago, graduation day from law school. She'd cried when I surprised her with it. Said it made me look like the man she'd always dreamed of marrying. Funny how that man had become invisible to her. The gala was at the Sycamore Hotel, glass walls, rooftop terrace, string quartet in the lobby. The kind of place where rich people wrote tax-deductible checks and congratulated themselves for being human. Through the wide lobby windows I saw Delia. She stood near the bar, silver gown hugging her like armor, champagne flute in hand, laughing too loudly at something Grant whispered in her ear. I walked through the doors without hesitation. Time to return the favor. Time to ruin her evening. The hostess tried to stop me at the check-in table. "I'm with the Carrington Law Foundation table," I said smoothly, brushing past without breaking stride. Delia's laughter died the moment she saw me. Her face went ghost white under the ambient lighting, champagne flute frozen in midair. Grant looked like he'd spotted a fire alarm and was mentally calculating the nearest exit. "Evan," Delia said, her voice tight and syrupy. "What a surprise." I smiled wide. "Thought I'd support my wife's career. Hope you don't mind me crashing the party." All around us, conversations slowed. Heads turned. I moved to the bar and ordered a whiskey. Neat. The bartender, a lanky kid with tattoo sleeves and a pierced eyebrow, gave me a once-over. "Rough night?" he asked. "Make it a double." Delia materialized beside me, still trying to keep up appearances. "What are you doing here?" she hissed under her breath. "Supporting my successful spouse. Isn't that what a good husband does?" "You're embarrassing yourself." I sipped my drink and looked her straight in the eye. "No. I'm embarrassing you." Grant appeared at my other side, cologne thick and posture tense. "Evan," he said, extending a hand. "Glad you could make it." I looked at it but didn't take it. "Still breathing, I see." Grant's hand hovered awkwardly before he slowly pulled it back. His confident mask cracked just enough to satisfy me. Delia slid between us like a human shield. "Why don't you get something to eat, honey?" she said, all smiles and clenched teeth. "The shrimp is excellent." "I'm not hungry for shrimp," I replied, eyes locked on Grant. The tension snapped taut. Nearby guests began openly watching now. Lawyers, donors, socialites, sensing drama, smelling blood. Across the room I saw Delia's boss, Charles Greer, a silver-haired legend known for gutting opposing counsel with charm. He was watching, arms crossed, one brow raised in interest. And that's when inspiration struck. I tilted my whiskey glass just enough to look unsteady. Then I stumbled. Right into Grant. The drink spilled in a perfect amber arc, soaking the front of his crisp white shirt and that overpriced suit Delia used to compliment like a schoolgirl with a crush. "Oh crap," I said loud enough for half the room to hear. "I'm so sorry, man. Total accident." Grant jumped back, whiskey dripping from his chin, hands raised like I'd thrown acid. "What the hell?" I grabbed a stack of cocktail napkins. "Let me help," I said, pressing them into his chest, hard. "Back off," Grant hissed, trying to shove my hands away. But I kept blotting, pressing just a little harder than necessary, making the stain worse with every dab. "It's fine," he muttered through clenched teeth. No. "I insist," I said with exaggerated sincerity. "Wouldn't want anyone thinking I don't clean up my messes." A ripple of chuckles from the crowd. Nothing louder than the music, but enough. I stepped back and raised my empty glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, voice rising above the din, "may I propose a toast?" Delia's eyes widened. She grabbed my arm. "Evan, don't." But I was already turning to the crowd. "To Grant Calloway, junior partner at Carrington Law, and my wife's dedicated colleague. A man who works tirelessly, and often overtime." The room stilled. Every head turned. Conversation stopped. Even the quartet faltered. Grant turned the color of his wine. "And to Delia," I continued. "A woman deeply committed to exploring new legal strategies, sometimes with multiple parties involved." A choked laugh came from somewhere near the hors d'oeuvres. That's when Grant lunged at me. Clumsy. Predictable. Years of training took over. I sidestepped, let his momentum carry him straight into the bar with a crash. Glass clattered. Bottles toppled. The bartender swore as Grant flailed into the bar like a drunken tourist. "Gentlemen, please," barked a voice, Greer. But the damage was done. Security moved fast, two bulky guys in ill-fitting suits. They grabbed Grant by the arms, dragging him toward the exit like a disgraced contestant on a game show. "This isn't over," he spat over his shoulder. "Sure it is," I replied, calm as ever. Delia was right behind him, her heels clicking a furious rhythm across the marble floor. She didn't even look back. I stood alone at the bar, surrounded by donors, colleagues, and opportunistic gossip hounds. Their silence screamed louder than any whisper ever could. The bartender, still drying spilled whiskey, gave me a look halfway between sympathy and respect. "Another double?" he asked. "Make it a triple." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Zoe. "Dad, Mom's party is all over Insta. Are you okay?" I looked around the room, people staring, pretending not to. Delia's carefully crafted reputation had just imploded under the glittering chandeliers. She wanted a scandal. She got one. I typed back, "Never better, sweetheart. Never better." By Monday the fallout hit like a landslide. Delia moved into the guest room. We only spoke through Zoe, who had no interest in being our go-between. She looked exhausted, like a kid stuck refereeing a war neither parent would admit had already ended. "Mom says you need to apologize to Grant," she told me at breakfast, eyes fixed on her cereal. "She can tell me that herself," I said, sipping coffee. "She also says you're having some kind of breakdown." I looked at Zoe. Really looked. "What do you think?" She studied my face for a long moment, like she was parsing through legal precedent. "I think Mom's been acting weird for months, and you finally noticed." I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Delia emerged from her office a few minutes later, hair pulled back, eyes shadowed with lack of sleep. Still beautiful. Still unreachable. "We need to talk," she said. "Now you want to talk?" "Not here." She glanced at Zoe. "Somewhere private." We ended up at the Bluebird Diner out on Route 5. Same booth where we'd had our first date 20 years ago. The same red vinyl, the same stale coffee. The same woman and yet, not. "You humiliated me," she said quietly. I almost laughed. "I humiliated you?" I said, eyebrows raised. "In front of your boss? Your friends? You think that's the crime? You don't understand what this could do to my career." I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. The screen lit up with photos, hotel receipts, screenshots of emails, texts she never meant me to see. "You have any idea what this did to our marriage?" Delia stared at the images. Her face didn't twist in shame or horror. Not even anger. Relief. "You went through my things. You left them lying around," I replied. "Sloppy work, counselor." She pushed the phone back to me. "So what now? You want a divorce? Do you?" She looked down at her untouched coffee, then out the window where a young couple was laughing as they got into a beat-up Corolla. "Carefree. In love." "I want you to fight for me," she whispered. The words hit harder than I expected. "What?" "All these months. I was waiting for you to notice. To care. To show something besides silence and a fixed sink." "So you cheated to get my attention?" "I cheated because I felt invisible." Her voice cracked, but I wasn't sure if it was guilt or just strategy. "When was the last time you looked at me?" Delia asked, eyes glistening. "I mean really saw me. Not the schedule. Not the bills. Me." I opened my mouth, ready to argue, defend, explain, but nothing came out. Because part of me knew she was right. We had become a checklist. A calendar. A quiet routine where passion was replaced by politeness. "Grant made me feel alive," she continued. "He saw me as something more than just a wife or a mother or a fixture in the kitchen." "Grant sees you as a challenge," I said. "Trust me, I read his emails. You're not his first married woman. You won't be his last." Her face twitched. Doubt. Wounded pride. Maybe both. At least he tried. Silence settled between us. The final. She reached across the table and touched my hand. "It doesn't have to end like this, Evan. We could try counseling. Rebuild what we lost." And for a moment I almost believed her. Almost let hope crawl back in. Then I remembered the look on her face when she invited Grant to dinner. The smirk. The laugh. "It's already over," I said, standing. "I want you out. Tonight." Her hand recoiled. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious."